So Keeley Hawes, you're on the Emmy ballot 3 times this year, and they all came together on May 12th, where you're at the BAFTAs and you're nominated for both Bodyguard and Mrs. Wilson, and that's airing on BBC. And then over on ITV is the finale of the Durrells, which we haven't seen over here yet, but you'll be in competition for season 3 of that on the Emmy ballot. We have to wait till next year. But just take us back to that night and what was going on in your head with all of that?
Well, it's such a lovely thing. I know everybody always says that, but it is such a lovely thing to be nominated, and to be nominated in those 2 categories, actress and best actress and best supporting, isn't something that happens every day. So I felt like it was a celebration of work, and it sort of really, I didn't think that I would win, but actually there was something so lovely about the 2 nominations, and the shows were nominated, and we have something, a BAFTA that's voted for by the public. It's best moment. So Julia's big moment in Bodyguard was up for that. So and we did win that one. So that was very special because it was voted for by the public. So yeah, it was just really lovely. And I was sitting. I had the Bodyguard guys on the row with me. Our producer and Jed Mercurio couldn't make it, but I had my husband obviously next to me, and then I had the producers of Bodyguard, and then in the row behind I had Ruth Wilson and the team from Mrs. Wilson. Ruth Wilson was there with her father, and our lovely director Richard Laxton, and our producer Ruth. So it was actually a really lovely evening. And even the people that sort of won instead of us, the producers Sally and Lee from Killing Eve, and the Killing Eve guys, they are the same production company who make Killing Eve, also make the Durrells. So we're great friends. So it was just a sort of all-round celebration, really, of a fantastic, a phenomenal year for British television. So yeah, it was good. It was sort of surreal, and as those things tend to be, but good fun.
And then, so you mentioned winning the must-see moment, which is that key scene involving your character, Julia Montagu. People still sort of don't believe that she's gone, do they? I mean,
No, they won't have it. I don't know. I mean, she's definitely gone.
But I know you had a little bit of fun with that on the Red Nose Day with Julia.
And somehow, I mean, the paps were out when we were shooting. We made this little we made a little film for Comic Relief, where my character does reappear, and David Budd, Richard's asking if I'm alive or if I'm dead, and it's a little comedy sketch. But even that, the paps got there just after I'd left. I was there very early in the morning, so there were just photographs of Richard. So nobody even knew about that I was going to be in that. So it has been such fun. The whole thing in this country, certainly people, because of the way that the Bodyguard went out, it went out and you couldn't stream it. So it was a Sunday night show. So it was a real water cooler show. And that moment, people had to wait a week to find out what happened after that. So the whole thing has been great fun. And Jed and I have had fun on Twitter as well, sort of talking about it as though I'm going to come back and if I'm going to come back or not. And but I think she's very much
she's not. But you mentioned that sort of water cooler moment. I mean, and I don't want to underplay this. I mean, you had 20% of the country tuning in. I mean, 17 million people. I mean, in America, that would be a huge audience. Over there, how do you keep the secret? Not just when you're filming it, but you must have been, were you filming something else when it was going out, Bodyguard, in the UK?
I was actually in Corfu shooting on the Durrells. So so in a way it worked out really well, because I literally physically wasn't able to go on any morning shows or do any of that sort of press as it was going out. So that was left to some poor other people who had to do those things and keep the secret going. But no, it was just amazing. Even there, people were, even in Corfu, where I was just in this little bubble shooting the Durrells, people were coming over on their holidays and sort of shouting at me everywhere I went, and asking me if that moment was true.
And then so it goes out in England in August and September, and then October Netflix streams it worldwide. And then, but everyone could see it in 6 hours. So just a few weeks ago, you were on the Graham Norton show talking about your newest show, Summer of Rockets. And you've got two-time Oscar winner Sally Field sitting next to you, talking about being a fan of both Bodyguard and the Durrells. I mean, what does that mean to you, to know now that?
Crazy to me, because I look at someone like Sally, and not only is she just a phenomenal actress. I mean, someone who I have so much respect for. But I've grown up with her, like we all have. She's in, and also I have 3 children. So we've had Mrs. Doubtfire alone going on in my house for the last 18 years. So yeah, that was very special, actually. She is a glorious woman, and yeah, it was pretty amazing.
So you mentioned Jed, couldn't be at the BAFTAs, the creator of Bodyguard, which is a shame, but he also creates Line of Duty, which if people haven't seen it in America, I urge them to stream it because it's extraordinary. 5 seasons, this mystery that keeps going and looks like it's going to keep going. But he does that, creates that part of Lindsay Denton for you. And that's really, I feel that transformed your career. That had people looking at you a different way.
It certainly did, yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it did. I hadn't really, I hadn't played a character like that before. She was, a real departure, and I think particularly physically, it was a departure from anything anybody had seen me do before, which was a nice surprise, and people just found her fascinating. I found her fascinating. I mean, Jed didn't write, he didn't create her for me. I don't think he wrote, I don't think he created Julia for me either. But he writes so brilliantly, for, like I said, for women, but his characters in general, and I think one of the brilliant things that he does is, I think he sort of writes kind of gender blind. Even Bodyguard, although it obviously worked very well, as it was. Even Bodyguard, you could switch those parts. Every one of those, every character in that show could be played by a man or a woman. And it just works really, really well. And
in terms of Bodyguard, yeah, it's gender blind. But what I particularly liked is that what happens between your character and Richard Madden's, the relationship. No reference to the ages. No, those scenes, they're so intimate. I mean, how do you sort of prepare for doing those kinds of scenes that, the one-on-ones with him? It seems the chemistry between you is so palpable.
Yeah. I don't know, actually, that you can prepare. We didn't have a lot of rehearsal. We don't have time, and I'm sure it's the same in the States. we really didn't have any rehearsal at all. We just went straight into all of those very intense scenes. You know, we had an intense week of exteriors where we were doing all the scenes. You know, the car being shot at and car chases and those interiors. And then we had a very intense week in a hotel where we shot all the hotel scenes. And I think by that point, you know, I didn't know Richard at all before the read through. I think before the table read, which is where we met. But then by the point, you know, that you are doing those intimate scenes, you know, you've built up a friendship and you've built up a trust, and those scenes were a few weeks in. What was in the script, and you know, they're the sorts of things that you just have to go for it to make it believable. And while you don't always get on so well with everyone you're working with, in this case, you know, Richard and I got on so well that it couldn't have been better. I totally trusted him, and I think he felt the same.
And then the other reason you were at the BAFTAs was for Mrs. Wilson, and the scenes you have with Ruth Wilson. Surreal is the word that comes to mind, because Ruth Wilson is playing her grandmother, Allison, who discovers after her husband's death that she's one of many wives, and you play Dorothy Wick, who's one of his other wives. What's going through your mind as the actor, but as the person, when you're sort of playing opposite Ruth, who's really exploring a family history that's kind of shocking to us?
I think that the whole thing for Ruth, she was so brilliant. I think I can speak for her in as much as I could tell and as much as I knew. Was that she was. We weren't dwelling on the fact that she was playing her grandmother. I think somewhere in herself she must have compartmentalized that, and you know, in order to play her. I think if you can probably overthink that, and then I think it would have been a very, very difficult thing to do. But as it was, you know, she's so cool. She's such a lovely woman and such a brilliant actress that actually, you know, I read those scripts, and really it's that one big scene. It was about 15 pages long or something. We shot it over 2 days, and I just read it, and I oh my God, I just thought I've got to do this, and I just loved working with her. I'd never met her before, and I just thought I can't think of anything. It was like sort of like doing a mini play for a couple of days, and just a two-hander with us just exploring these amazing women and their stories.
And I know you're playing this real life person, but there's not a lot known about her. What do you think it was about Wilson that drew all these women to him? And I think that even after he was gone, they sort of didn't think badly of him, you know, that there was.
No, that was the most extraordinary, one of the most extraordinary things, because there are a lot. You know, I was talking to Ruth, and she said that, you know, when she discussed this project with her family and with his children and their children, that their main concern was that he wasn't shown in a bad light, because he was a brilliant father, and because they loved him so deeply. So I have no idea what it was. I have no idea what drove him to live that life. I certainly don't envy him. It couldn't have been easy. It must have been awful. But I think probably somewhere in himself, his reasons were, you know, that he had to do the right thing by each of these women. You know, be it that one of them got pregnant, so they had to get married, or what, you know. And I think probably he felt that he was doing the right thing. I think quite often, you play a character like Julia Montague. We may not agree with her politics or her reasons, but she thinks she's doing the right thing, and I think he is another example of that.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention The Missing, which was just extraordinary a few years ago, that performance. Did the Durrells come right out of that? Is that the next thing you did, was the Durrells after The Missing?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. It was around about the same time that we started doing the Durrells. I started saying it like you do.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a hard one. Yeah.
Yes, but nobody in the States knows what I'm saying. I was in the States a couple of weeks ago and I was talking about the Durrells and people are looking at me like, the Durrells?
Okay.
Yeah, the Durrells. So yes, it was very nice to go, something as hardcore as The Missing into something so fabulous and light and kind of comedy led, like the Durrells.
So, and then again, playing this real woman, Louisa, but how much did you delve into her life before? I mean, the scripts are so wonderful, but did you get a chance to do much research into her, and is there much known about her?
There's a lot known about her, and mostly because the series is based on a trilogy of books, and about this family, about this woman who takes her family, who takes her 4 children. She's a widow, and she takes her 4 children from England in the 1930s, and she moves them all to Corfu, which was an extraordinary thing to do at the time. They had no money, they didn't speak the language, and so her youngest son, Gerald Durrell, became a great conservationist and a zoo owner and an animal lover, sort of like David Attenborough. Here he's much more well known, but so he grew up and he wrote these books about Corfu.
Yeah, I knew about that, but I was curious if she herself wrote. I mean, because the other son, Lawrence, is a writer, because of course that's filtered through the eyes of the child. So I just wondered if how realistic you thought his portrayal of his mother was.
I think he, from what I know, and we do know, he idolized his mother. They all did. She, having father, they lost their father when they were all very young, and she was this incredible woman. I mean, there is a dark side to the story, and that she had a problem with alcohol. She was lonely. She didn't ever marry again. There is that darker side, but we do touch on that a little bit. But as you say, the books are written through the eyes of a boy who loves his mother more than life itself. And I think even when she died, he was never quite the same, even though he was a much older man then. We also made, to go out after the finale of the show, a 1-hour documentary called What the Durrells Did Next. So hopefully you'll get that too, which is really interesting, because they all went off and they had just more adventures and these wonderful lives. So that was very. That was great. I presented that. I'm not a presenter, so that was something new. But I also, I then learned more, and then went off and interviewed lots of people that had known them and known them known the Durrells through their lives.
And just to sort of finish, I think one thing you also, it was such a big rating success, both here and in the UK, but you also took on another role there as executive producer for the last season, I think.
I did. And I have gone into producing more actually now on the back of that, and it was a perfect place to start, mostly because we'd done 3 series already, and it was a 4th, and it's a show that I know inside out. I felt very looked after by Sally Woodward Gentle and Lee Morris and the guys who produced the show. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, and I think I'm
Right.
sort of at that stage where I'm looking at things in a different way. So it's exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking the time. But hopefully, I think we'll be talking to you next year for Summer of Rockets, because we're just hearing wonderful things about that. And I know that was sort of a dream of yours.
It was Stephen Polikoff. I mean, I've been trying to force him to work with me for years. No, I haven't. I've known Stephen for a long time, and we just haven't ever worked together. So we had a lot of fun last summer, and the show is on air at the moment over here. It's called Summer of Rockets, and he is, as we know, he's just brilliant. And it's going down very well. So hopefully, I hope you enjoy it.
And then we're talking all about TV. But this film, Misbehavior, that's coming out in the autumn, also looks really interesting, about the Miss World pageant. And you play one of the woman who organized it, and it just looks like it's going to be something that I think we'll be talking to you about that in the fall, because people are very excited about that as well.
Yes. I hope so. I saw some of that a couple of days ago, and it looks really fantastic. I'm very excited. Rhys Ifans and I play Eric and Julia Morley, who were Mr. and Mrs. Miss World in 1970. So I don't know about you, but I grew up watching that. It was huge event TV. I mean, it was so exciting and so glamorous. And looking back now, it was all kinds of wrong, but but the story is great, and yeah, very, very exciting.
Okay, well, thank you again for taking the time. Bye-bye, Keeley.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.